Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening across the world. Welcome to another episode of Just Ball Things, revealing himself from under the red hood. Shout out to the old Batman fans out there. Is the J-Man, Jack Manuel. How are you, buddy?
Shout out to fairy tale fans out there. Little Red Riding Hood, but I'm Big Red Riding Hood, baby.
Oh, yes. So large. My name is, as always, a cracking start to this podcast, Jackie boy. My name is Nick Busing, and mate, joined the gym this week.
Oh, hey, good for you.
Look at me go. Got a wedding coming up. Got other people's weddings coming up. Got to lose some kegs. I've got to strengthen my hamstrings. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. It's a pretty small gym. I mainly joined to fix up my hamstring because it's fucking fucked to all end. So good old physios are giving me some hamstring exercises, and hopefully I can get back to playing the sports that I love. Because last time I played basketball, which I think was with you, I popped it again.
Yeah,
on one of my explosive drives. One of my very explosive drives.
Carl Anderson-like.
Oh, boy. Yeah, so hopefully I can get back to basketball hopefully soon. And soccer, that's the big one, soccer. All right, let's get started here, Jackie boy. We've had a lot happen in the past 2 weeks. We didn't record last week. I didn't really want to press you on that Sunday because obviously we were about to record when the Nets lost.
I was in mourning.
Yes.
I was in mourning.
So I didn't press you. I was just like, listen, he's probably going to have to record a buzz right now. I'll let him go. But here we are. We could talk about it and laugh that the Brooklyn Nets are no longer in the playoffs. Haha. You can contact us, as always, on Twitter at the J-Man JBT or at JBT Nick. We're also closely affiliated with OTG Basketball. They've got an awesome podcast network and YouTube network where you can keep up to date with all things NBA. Make sure you give them a follow on Twitter at OTG Basketball and on YouTube as well at OTG Basketball. If you are watching us on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe as well. Facebook.com/JustBallThings. Make sure you give us a like and a follow there. And jbtpodcast at gmail.com if you would like to hit us up on the email, which we did receive an interesting email this week. Unsure if we're going to mention it, but I mean, we might. I don't know.
You want me to? I wouldn't mind doing it because...
Yeah, we can, for sure.
The coincidental nature of it, Nick, was the day before I recorded a Brooklyn Buzz with my other favourite Nick Fay, and we were talking about comments from, funnily enough, this person's publicist, person who has a book coming out, person who also appeared on the Celtics Lab, who was a part of the OTG network as well, and made some pretty explosive out there claims, which we discussed about Kyrie Irving and trade possibilities and stuff. And so we got an email, and it was from Matt Sullivan's publicist. Look, shout out to Matt Sullivan, put out a book, good for him. Got insider info, whatever you want, my guy. But one thing I didn't like about it, Nick, and I didn't actually tell you this, I told a lot of other people that there was like suggested questions and stuff. And it's just like, if you're coming on JBT, Brooklyn Buzz, any OTG podcast, we're not going to get dictated to by what content we put out. No, this is our platform. I understand that, you're providing your time, your services and whatever, but, you're promoting your book and doing your thing and saying dumb things about the basketball team that I follow, then I'm going to ask you questions, not get dictated by what you or your publicist want. I get it to an extent. It's probably, if this had been someone that I had a little bit more faith in, a little bit more respect for, then cool, I will ask any question to Kyrie Irving, Sean Marks, or any reputable NBA insider, basketball player, executive. But yeah, I was a little bit put off at how this sort of went behind the scenes very quickly before we get to Busy Manuel Scale was Nick sort of messages me like at 1 a.m. I wake up.
Yeah, I was still kicking. I was still going.
Yeah, I go and wake up to take a pee. And I sort of see this. I'm like, wait, email? What email? The only emails we get are like from Apple Podcasts. And that is absolutely it. So I'm like, who actually has contacted us? And they contacted directing me. So I'm like, okay, I think I must have maybe the email on my Twitter bio or somewhere around there. And I go through it. I'm like, okay, it was funny, coincidental. I shared it with Nick. I spoke to Mr. Music as well, and here we are. Here we are, Nick. So we're going to be doing BMS because we think that content is content we enjoy talking about,
Damn right.
rather than necessarily discussing issues that are dictated to us.
Damn right, Jackie boy. Stay strong, brother. You do you. For those of you who are new, BMS, Beauty Hour Scale, this is a JBT creator scale that sums up how likely things are to happen in the NBA. We scale it on alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, or a straight up fact. Jackie boy, there has been some incredible performances by some stars in the NBA over the past 2 months over the playoffs, but we're not here to talk about that. I guess maybe we're not. We're here to talk about the complimentary guys. DeAndre Ayton has been a revelation in the playoffs. Jackie boy, give me your takes. I apologize to any Suns fans implying that DeAndre Ayton is not a star. I do apologize.
Look, I'll probably discuss a little. This gives us a leeway to have a bit of a broad discussion about the revelations throughout this playoffs. And DeAndre Ayton, obviously, the journey to his rise to stardom has been, a pretty formidable one. Obviously he had the 25-game suspension for the PEDs last year. You could look at that as a blessing in disguise, and the ability for him to process the game in a different way alongside Monty Williams and sort of go, this is what you need to do. This is what we want you to do. Aaron Baines is pretty goddamn awesome, and he's going to lead us to gold at the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. But, DeAndre Ayton is a beast unto himself. There is a reason why he was the number one pick. So he has absolutely been a revelation, Nick. And one of the best games of his career today in a pretty dour affair in the game 4 matchup against the Los Angeles Clippers. But I also want to shout out his teammate, Cameron Payne, because that dude was known for high-fiving your boy, Russell Westbrook, and that was his claim to fame. He was overseas, hooping over there, and then we saw these glimpses of just solid NBA playerness, to put it as a verb, I guess, in the bubble, where it's just like, okay, Cameron Payne's got something here, a little bit of a backup guard, and right now, you could make the argument that he's probably the best backup guard in the league. Now, I'll probably make the argument for Spencer Dinwiddie if he's coming off the bench, and for me, a couple of other guys here and there. But Cameron Payne in games throughout these playoffs has been an integral part of the Phoenix Suns' success and their rise to, championship status. So I want to give a massive shout out to Cameron Payne. I'll put out a tweet. I don't know if it's in the doc. I put it in there, Nick. I was asking people whether their thoughts on Reggie Jackson versus Cameron Payne as a better sort of coming out story, so to speak, or redemption story. And it was interesting to see people sort of go, well, Reggie Jackson already had, he got a contract, he's just out of Detroit now, and he's actually playing some good basketball. He's playing alongside a really good friend in Paul George, whereas, Cam Payne was nothing. And other people were different, but I think all of us can agree that both of them have been absolutely amazing, and the importance that they've had to their team's success. They're going to play an integral part to whichever team comes out of the West, to be honest. And massive shout out also to Trae Young here. It's not necessarily a revelation, but to go from a guy that had a lot of question marks around him, to be honest, Nick. A guy that was just like, is he going to be Devin Booker 2.0 in terms of good stats, bad team guy? And he's sort of just turned himself into a bona fide star, a personality that every one of us love. 50 games ago, 3-4 months ago, I hated Trae Young because of what he was doing, against my Brooklyn Nets and doing all the little dinky little fouls. And I guess it's rich coming from me with a team that has James Harden on it. But in terms of what he is now and the personality that he provides this game, the shimmies, the FUs, the shut the F up. My brother keeps sending me that meme over and over again, and I love it every single time he sends it to me because I'm a big fan of it, Nick. Big fan of it. So shout out to Trae Young as well. There's a lot of great stories in this playoffs, and that's why I think that the ratings are booming. We're loving it. Basketball is going gangbusters. The NBA's in a pretty goddamn good place.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. In the case of, I guess, Reggie Jackson versus Cam Payne, Cam Payne was a guy 3 years ago couldn't stay on the team. I think he went through like 4 different teams in 3 years or something like that. I got his basketball reference. There's 2016 to 2019. It was at OKC, OKC, Chicago, and Cleveland before Phoenix picked him up at the start of 2019. Yeah, this guy could not stay in the league, and I do remember seeing the memes of, yeah, that's right, the dances between Campaign and Russell Westbrook, and that was great, and Campaign was just an afterthought, really. And he's won them games. He has won them games in this playoff series. The past 2 games, he has been not amazing. But
he's been dealing with that injury. And the adversity.
But that game, what was it? Game 2.
Game 2, I think it was.
Game 2, 29 points.
Yep.
Incredible. I mean, he won them that game. He's had other games during the Lakers series as well, where he's absolutely torching them from outside. It's been incredible. Ayton as well. I just touch briefly on him. This is a guy who, in his first 2 matchups, the big thing to a lot of people was, will he stay on the court? He not only stayed on the court, but was proven very, very effective. Even more so, surprisingly so, against Jokic in that matchup. I mean, Anthony Davis, bit hobbled. But when he was on and when he was healthy, DeAndre Ayton certainly stood his ground and stood his own. He was truly amazing, saving himself for the playoffs. The guy has always been an offensive talent, and defensively over the past 2 years, he has improved a lot. He was a sieve in his first year.
It's funny, Nick, because I obviously related a lot to my Brooklyn Nets experience and watching every Brooklyn Nets game. There was a game where the Nets were able to play DeAndre Ayton off the floor. It's when we had that 23, 25-point comeback by playing Jeff Green at the 5. Whereas now, it's sort of like he was sort of like Rudy Gobert when Rudy Gobert was going up against the Los Angeles Clippers. Whereas DeAndre Ayton now has, you sort of mentioned the defense. I think that's where he's come from, because his offensive productivity, he is a man mountain. He is so fluid. He is so smooth in the way that he moves for a guy of his size. But he's now got the defensive IQ and capabilities and engagement to lead the back line of a team, and also, go one-on-one in ISOs against big blokes. And Bika Zubac has been all right as well. But DeAndre Ayton has been one of the, like we said, a real revelation throughout these playoffs.
Absolutely found money. When people were still betting the Suns, thinking that Ayton would potentially be played off the floor, banking on the reliability of Chris Paul, which hasn't really been there, and Devin Booker, but they've gotten so much contributions from so many other places, and not to disparage on Reggie Jackson. Where did this come from? Reggie Jackson was never the guy in Detroit, and I didn't watch a lot of Detroit games. I'm not going to lie, Jackie boy. Not really an appealing team when he was playing on them. But never really in the All-Star contention. I think there was 1 year where he started the year and it was absolutely having a blinder, and then sort of trailed off, as per the Pistons. But his role in this Clippers team is truly remarkable, and maybe it is a virtue of me not watching enough Suns games, but I watch Detroit games. I watch Reggie Jackson play on this Clippers team. I'm like, how is this guy had the career that he has had? Because he's playing so well, is what I'm saying. He's playing so well at the Clippers, and yet he constantly gets crapped on. But I mean, this is the whole, Jay Crowder of it all. You find, did super well at the Celtics and not so well at the Cavs. Different teams, different organizations can suit you so well, and he certainly has found the perfect spot, it would seem, in the Clippers. Which all power to him.
Big time. There's no way to transition nicely to this topic, Nick, but I think it's an important topic that we do touch on. I put to you and I put to all of our listeners out there, Portland and Dallas's coach hirings are a slap in the face to victims of abuse. Now, for those who haven't been up with the news of late, it seems fait accompli that we will see Portland hire Chauncey Billups, and the Dallas Mavericks are hiring Jason Kidd to be their head coach of their organization.
Nothing has been confirmed, though, last I heard, or has it actually been signed?
I think Portland has been. I think that Dallas, I saw contract talks and stuff, and I'm just like, well, if you talk
by the time this podcast comes out, I mean, it may have already been, decided. It's close. It is close, if not.
Yeah, the I's and the T's are probably dotted at this stage, Nick. But I think that this is an important conversation to have, especially because the perspective of women in this situation doesn't get enough voice. Their voices seem to be dulled by the men that happen to be in the privileged high up positions of power that they now have. And funnily enough, their misconduct, to put it lightly, off the court is because of the power imbalance that does happen in a lot of those situations, be it in Jason Kidd's situation where it was domestic abuse, where he and both his partner were both convicted of that, and also in Chauncey Billups' situation where in 1997 he had a civil suit settled in terms of rape allegations. Now, obviously there's going to be people be like, everyone deserves a second chance, and I understand the nature of that, but I also think that there are certain things where, okay, can you look at it from the perspective of not necessarily the person who you like because they play basketball or because they have a tie to your organization, but can you look at it from the person of the perspective whose voice has been dulled, whose power has been silenced to a degree where they probably, when they see Chauncey Billups on a screen, when they see Jason Kidd or other abusers or other people accused of these sort of issues, it's sort of, can you imagine what it must feel like for them? I honestly can't. But I think that to actually bring it up, there was a really great article on SB Nation, and when Nick has a bit of a talk about what he thinks of this issue, I'm going to go through it and find some pretty pertinent quotes about some Portland Trailblazers fans and how this sort of relates to them. Obviously, we know Damian Lillard was getting called out a little bit on Twitter. He said that he didn't necessarily know about the history of Chauncey Billups, which is fine. At the end of the day, you can't blame one guy. I would probably blame more so Neil O'Shea and the process that gets us to this point where it's just like, okay, we know everything that's fucking happened here. We know the history that Jason Kidd has. One, he's not a fucking good coach either. Yeah, no. So the fact that he's getting
amazing.
The fact that he's getting like a third chance, and the fact that it is with the organization in Dallas where we saw their owner cry like a goddamn bitch on the jump to Rachel Nichols about the fact that his organization, the expose that Sports Illustrated highlighted on the misconduct, the sexual abuse, the sexual misconduct, and everything that was rampant at his franchise. And now it's just a big F you to people that have had to go through those experiences and be like, you know what, I'm Mark freaking Cuban. I don't give a shit what anyone else thinks. This is all my organization, and it's all to stroke my ego. Jason Kidd, you're going to be my yes man. Nico Harrison, you're going to be my yes man. Willie Nelson, see you later, mate. Or Donnie Nelson, sorry, not Willie Nelson. Donnie Nelson, see you later, mate. Rick Carlisle, see you later, mate. It's all going to be about the stroking of my ego, and it is honestly, pretty disgusting, Nick. And I know that I unfortunately have a lot of pretty much every woman in my life, and that I've had some sort of relationship with, whether it's a friend or a partner or a person I've dated, has gone through some level of hardship, abuse in some sort of fashion. So seeing the fact that these people, like Chauncey Billups, like Jason Kidd, just not necessarily get a free ride, but the elevation to their success is just so like it. I don't know. I get really frustrated about it, Nick, and I'm just going to go through the article while you have your little bit of a say on this issue, because there were some pretty pertinent quotes and much more eloquent than what I could sort of provide. But I'm a little bit sad, I guess, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. And this isn't a case of, and I'll see a lot of arguments for this sort of stuff, and it'll be along the lines of, so what, this guy is not allowed to get a job because of, what he did.
No, you're not allowed to have certain jobs. Like, why can't he be an assistant? Why does it have to be a public figure? Because the nature of the job itself is just like, if like I said, if you are a victim of one of those, a victim of the act itself, and you're seeing a person who has this elevation of status right now, and they're just out there time and time again, and it's sort of just thrown in your face. It's like literally like a whack in the face, a knife in the back, or whatever analogy you want to put out there, Nick. I think that we are too easy to forgive the perpetrators and not actually think about the thoughts, feelings, and well-being of the victims that are involved here.
That's right. I mean, it's easier. Yeah, exactly right. This is sort of what I was getting at, in that, it's not so much the fact that he's gotten a job; it's the fact that he's gotten the job, the face, the coaching face of the organization, someone that, you know, gets thrown at you time and time again. You know, if he was on if he was in the media, would have the same level of scrutiny. Somebody that is constantly, you know, forced down your throat, really. Especially if you follow these teams. They represent everything that's bad with, you know, the whole like toxic masculinity and, you know, general sports culture. It's awful. It's truly awful. And I don't know. I don't think there is so much. I don't think there's much more to say, because we had the same questions, I guess, when people were asking for the logo to be changed to Kobe Bryant. And as much good as Kobe did in his life, there is that black mark that is hovering over his name. There is that connotation that a lot of women have with Kobe Bryant's name. If they see his likeness and if they see his likeness and figure as the logo to a sport that they potentially they may love in the NBA, it's awful. And I think that's why it hasn't really got much airtime, because it's not going to happen. In a similar way, these men cannot be put into these positions of great public figure, of you know, the basketball stuff aside. Like, even so, Jason Kidd and Mark Cuban don't exactly have the best basketball relationship either. When Kidd was playing for the Mavs, weird. It's just that part's weird. The Portland Billups thing is less weird, but still awful. The Mavericks one doesn't even make sense from a basketball point of view. Anyway,
no.
Kidd is just a god awful coach, let alone a god awful human. So, anyway, I was surprised about the Chauncey Billups stuff. That I had no idea. I mean, great publicist, I guess. Is that the case? No, I just had no idea.
Yeah, and I think that's probably almost an even bigger indictment, Nick, because the fact that a person has the courage to come out and admit that this has happened to her. Now, obviously, it was settled. It was never in criminal court, and we don't know what the outcome was, because, like with Kobe Bryant's case, it was settled, you know, personally and in a civil situation. So the fact that you knew nothing about this, the fact that I knew so little details about this, just shows you the women that do have the courage to come out. And again, not 100% of the time do people come out, is this, you know, 100% true. You know, there are claims where it may not be true, but the overwhelming majority of the time, the women that do have the courage and the men that do have the courage to come out when these things do happen to them, the fact that their voices are so silenced and their experiences are so silenced and dulled, that a person who does a podcast every week, every second week, and knows quite a bit about basketball like you do, as well as myself, you barely anything about this, and now that this person has, it just shows that the well-being of the person who committed these allegedly committed these crimes is being far more favored in their well-being and in their just general demeanor than a person who actually had to endure these atrocities. So, to put a pin in this conversation, Nick, I want to shout out to Blazers Edge at SB Nation, who had an awesome article. I put it on my timeline at the JMA JVT if you want to check it out, where 5 women sort of, you know, recounted, you know, their opinions of seeing Chauncey Billups hired by Neil O'Shea as the head coach. And just to highlight this one paragraph in an otherwise pretty depressing, horrific article in terms of the experiences that these women have had in terms of how they feel about, I guess, what's happening in the NBA right now and to their organization that they love. And it sort of puts it a bit more eloquent than Nick and I ever could. And this woman said, what's her name again? I need to find it. Caitlin. She writes, "I'm angry that in 2021, a credible accusation of rape is not a disqualifier in the hiring process for such an elite position. There are only 30 head coaches in the entire league at any given point in time. I don't expect them to be angels or Boy Scouts or even all that likable. But I do expect that the league recognizes that these are highly visible, privileged positions and that the integrity of these leaders matters to our communities." Shout out to Caitlin, shout out to all the women in that article, and shout out to all the women who have been brave enough to voice their concerns, to say the least, about what is a pretty distorted current situation in relation to the hiring process. And it was also not funny, Nick, but it was interesting seeing Adrian Wojnarowski in an NBA Countdown sort of speaking about the process that was just talked about by Caitlin, and sort of the fact that, we had our internal processes and Chauncey Billups almost got a job in Cleveland anyway. And it's just like, why not be the team, the person, if you're Neil O'Shea, whoever it was, the ownership group that goes, you know what, we're going to stand for something here. We're going to say that these women's voices matter, these men's voices matter, these people who have had to endure these traumatic experiences, their voices matter. But apparently they don't. And that is something that is incredibly depressing, and we have to live with. And I think that the people who have had to endure these experiences have to live with every single day. And to have these visible men in these such positions as well, Nick, as Caitlin put it, it's pretty fucking awful.
Yeah, I can only imagine how much that would hurt, and that's all I can do. I can only imagine that. Which is why I guess the context in that article, coming from that women's perspective, is something we can't give. So give it a read. Give it a read, people. It's on.
Check it out
at
on
the J-Man, at the J-Man JBT. Give him a follow on Twitter. He shares some good stuff. All right, Jackie boy. Let's get to some well, I guess that was controversial. Let's get to some even more controversial stuff. Kevin Durant via Steve Kerr. Kevin Durant is more gifted than Michael Jordan. Wow, Jackie boy. What is this a true?
Fact.
Oh, there it is.
Factum Mundarino, Nick Busick, because look, I think I before I even heard this quote, I was discussing just Kevin Durant's just general legacy and what he did in Brooklyn in the playoffs with Nick on the last Brooklyn Buzz. And I was sort of talking about just the general being of Kevin Durant, the general nature of his basketball pure prowess is something that I don't think we are ever going to see again. A guy who is a 6'11", 7-foot shooting guard. That's what he is. He plays like a 7-foot shooting guard. His handle is incredible. His shooting is the best that we have ever seen. His defense is pretty freaking amazing as well. And he also, thanks to his time and tenure under Steve Kerr in Golden State, developed a all-roundness to his game in terms of his passing, in terms of his nous, that went beyond being just the best pure scorer that we've ever seen.
Defense was the big one for me
as well.
in
he was
Golden State. Yeah.
Yep, and what he did defensively for us in the playoffs was so damn important. In the post, as well as a rim protector, as well as a help defender. He was our best player on both ends of the floor. Yeah. We needed him to be for 48, 53 minutes of it. Now, to compare to the GOAT himself in MJ is obviously going to be highly controversial. But who's going to know more than Steve Kerr? The guy has played alongside Michael Jordan, and he has coached Kevin Durant as well. So he's had the virtue of having the experience with both of these guys face right up close. Kevin Durant in his prime, Michael Jordan in his prime. So if I'm going to listen to a voice that probably knows more than a subjective voice like me, I'm probably going to listen to a person like Steve Kerr rather than Stephen A. Smith, rather than Max Kellerman and Kendrick Perkins or whatever. But in all honesty, I think that if I'm going to make an argument for Michael Jordan, it's just about the relentless competitiveness and the relentless desire for minute after minute to impact the game and just rip the heart out of your teammates. Kevin Durant's aura with the way that he plays the game is different. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying that Kevin Durant plays with a level of respect for the purity of the game, where it's just like he loves the craft. The craft of basketball, the art of basketball is important to KD. And I think that he's striving for, I guess, a sense of purity, perfection within that I don't think a lot of other people really know or understand. We heard Jackie McMullen in a tweet that I put out, and that was on the Bill Simmons podcast, about saying how Kevin Durant wants to leave a legacy in Brooklyn, 3 championships or whatever. And I'm like, I actually think that his purpose is beyond that. And I think it came from Golden State. I think his purpose is just to leave a mark and leave a legacy on the sport itself, and just go, I'm Kevin Durant. And I think that his individual purpose is something that I think he's still discovering. Now, again, this is just me from an outsider perspective, sort of looking in. It completely different to Michael Jordan, who was just like, every single game, every single minute, I'm going to eat you alive. But also one little thing as well, Draymond Green did say on the Etc's podcast, Kevin Durant and Eddie Gonzalez podcast, that Kevin Durant's also one of the best shit talkers out there, so he's got some similarities to Michael Jordan in a respect too. But I think that there's just a different in personality and I guess the craft itself that they bring to the game. But we're splitting hairs, Nick. This is the best basketball player that I've ever seen, in Kevin Durant and like LeBron James. And I was lucky enough to watch every single minute, every single play of his this season, and I'm pretty goddamn lucky that's on my basketball team. I count my blessings.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I think the term gifted is obviously up for interpretation, but if we're talking like physical gifts, then this could potentially be a fact as well, because Kevin Durant, as you said, is taller and a better shooter. There's his height alone with what he can do, which is, play like Michael Jordan, at the height that he is incredible. The fluidity of his game is second to none in the league. He's the best. He's got the rings. He elevates his teammates. I mean, the guy has a legitimate case for GOAT status. Does Kevin Durant, and he's still got quite a bit of his career to go. 32, is he?
32, yep.
He's still got quite a bit of his career to go. You can just tell that he's built different physically because he dropped 49 points in a playoff game coming off a debilitating Achilles injury, which was, granted, well managed. But the guy, I mean, it looked like he never missed a beat. Which is just incredible for someone of his stature, his height, just to come back to basketball and just be awesome again. It was amazing.
Not just be awesome, Nick, but be the best.
Be the best, yeah.
He is now the best basketballer in the game. Yes, you can make an argument for LeBron James that he's best, but LeBron James is 37. Kevin Durant is 32, and he's coming off, like you said, the most debilitating, worst injury you can have in all of sports. So, sorry for interrupting, but he is the best right now, Nick. Everyone needs to realize that.
That's fair. I would concede that with Kevin Durant. He is tremendous. He is just on that same level as LeBron James, who are like 5 levels away. I know. Yeah. I know. Without Kyrie Irving, yeah.
There was no Joe Harris. There was James Harden with an injury that is supposed to leave you out of action for 6 to 8 weeks. And Kevin Durant, every single minute and every single moment of that series, nearly lifted us against a team that has like full health, apart from the Italian bloke that plays for Milwaukee, Dante DiVincenzo. So I don't mean to be reductive in that sense, but it was just remarkable what he was doing. It's, a lot of people sort of say, this is bigger, this is more legacy defining than, him winning those rings in Golden State. It's just like, I don't think you get to decide what is legacy defining for Kevin Durant, but I will say that it was legacy reminding. That I think that people were just like, okay, it happens with the greats because we sort of just go, LeBron James does it night after night. And that's what the greats do. They make us forget about how freaking amazing they are. And Kevin Durant, given the fact that it was taken away from us, he was doing his thing on the sidelines, recuperating, doing all his stuff and that he needed to do to get back to KD levels. And he gets back to KD levels, and now everyone's just like, shit, I better not forget about this dude. I better make sure that I cherish every highlight, every block, every pass, every pull-up 3, every goddamn size 18 shoe, long 2. But in all honesty, he's incredible, and basketball is in an amazing space. We're just talking about, the likes of Cameron Payne and Trae Young and DeAndre Ayton, but then you've still got the the legacy, absolute killers that have been around this league for 15 years, and LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Chris Paul. Basketball's great right now, Nick, and we're lucky to be watching it, and we're lucky to talk about it.
The good thing about basketball is that your peak goes for like 10 years. If you're one of the best, your peak goes for such a long time, and it is it's amazing. That in itself is incredible. The only, I guess, key difference, and you mentioned it, is the mentality. Kevin Durant has this smoothness and almost nonchalance about the way that he plays. It's like he sees his opponent and he's just like, whatever, I can beat you, and then put up 50 points. Whereas the intimidation of MJ was
MJ's making up
part.
stories about dudes that he thinks scored 36 on him, but it's just like, dude, you didn't, that didn't happen. Yeah. Why you even make it? I agree. I like the word nonchalance, and I don't think you're using that as a criticism either. I think you're just using that as a fact that Kevin, it more relates to the ease with which Kevin Durant makes this game.
It just feels like he's so far above everyone that it's just he's like gliding when everyone else is like trudging off this mountain, and he's just like, it's that guy who played footy in PE class when you're doing the beep test, and he's, you bow out after 5 and he's still going there at 10. And he's just like, how is he doing this? Anyway, 10 is not exactly a super high. It is for me. It's massive for me.
I think it's interesting, Nick, and I think this might be sort of something we could dive deep into, in the offseason, because there's some great books about just the fact that, I like some people, whether it's, like Simone Biles with gymnastics or Serena Williams with tennis or whatever. Are these people born with it? It's something that is like a much deeper conversation that we can have in a 1 hour, 45-minute podcast, but I think some of it has to be genetics or something within them, because we're all born with the same desire and love for these sports and such, and we all want to practice to be the best that we can be, but no one can do 40 million backflips in a row, not have the power and prowess and finesse of what Serena Williams does. It's an interesting debate and an interesting discussion to have, that I think that we might use this platform to do it maybe sometime in the off season when it gets a little bit quieter.
Yeah, for sure. There's like how much, and there have been studies like how much of it is it repetition and practice, and what actually is anyone actually born with innate skill, or is it just how you've been brought up, and how well you can stick to a task, and I've seen that in myself. But that depends on what you're passionate about. Someone who's not passionate about basketball isn't going to be playing basketball 10 hours a day,
Yeah.
Anyway, Jackie boy, someone who also is not passionate about basketball, Ben Simmons, should join.
That segue deserves a round of applause. That might be the best segue we have had in this season in the 19 episodes of JBT. Well done to you, sir.
Very topical. Ben Simmons should join the Boomers in Tokyo. Now, watch all our American listeners just depart, which is most of them. But we're talking about the Australian national team here. Let's get it in. Give me your case as to why Ben Simmons should not be on the Boomers, Jackie boy.
Okay.
Is there
should
one?
Not be on the Boomers, because I don't know if the dude's actually going to shoot the basketball. No. In all honesty, Nick, there was a nice discussion by ESPN Australia. There was a bloke I know, Kane Pittman, as well as a few other people, discussing, this in a more serious fashion than probably we will. We'll probably throw a few jokes in here and there. But in all honesty, the nature of the Australian national basketball team, there is an innate camaraderie to it. It's embedded in the history of the culture, with Andrew Bogut, Joe Ingles.
It's the Boomers system.
It is. It's the Boomers system. And it's led by the leaders. It's led by the coaches. It's led by, Paddy Mills and Dellavedova, all these sort of dudes. Andrew Gaze back in previous iterations of this team. And I think Ben Simmons would actually benefit from that, Nick, as an outlet from all of the warrants and minutes and hours on talkback sports television about him and his individual prowess or lack thereof. Whereas if you're in an environment with your mates. You know, you got Joey Ingles talking shit and giving you a coffee in the morning. You got Paddy Mills talking about the Adelaide Crows and what's going on against the Bombers and stuff. And you got, Aaron Baines with the gorgeous top knot and probably just like screening everyone that comes his way in the Tokyo Village. I honestly do think that it provide a benefit for him, and it would also give him an opportunity to show, his basketball abilities again, and remind us that you are a three-time All-Star, an All-NBA player on a platform and where it's just like you're going to go up against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Jason Tatum and these guys. You can go up against those guys, Benny, and you can shut your stuff and prove your worth yet again. Now, I obviously don't buy into all of the hyperbolic takes that are going on. I do think that there are a lot of issues with Ben Simmons and his game, and I've been pretty vocal about them on my timeline as well as everywhere else. But the opportunity that the national team does provide, I think, is a good one. But in all honesty, Nick, I think that Ben Simmons, I don't know if he will ever play for the Boomers. Now, part of me, the reason why I say that is because I think it's part of him, it might be embedded in him and in his personality that he has a too school for cool mentality. It's all about him. I got Kendall Jenner on the side. Nah, I'm not shooting threes. Brett Brand, you can F off. You're not telling me what to do. Doc Rivers, yeah, you've won a chip before, but you're not going to make me shoot inside 12 feet. I think that he marches to the beat of his own drum, and I think that's to his own detriment sometimes. I think he needs some people to be like, Ben, shoot a goddamn three or I'm pulling you from this game. Ben, there's an opportunity here for you to represent your country in a way. And if, like, we see him in the dumb 4-20 commercial where he shoots a three and whatever, and it's just like, okay, now, again, this isn't me trying to get all nationalistic because I'm not a big, national pride person. But he's sort of making a mockery, not making a mockery, but like earning money and value off the likeness of his Australianness, but not really repaying it in return. I'm not saying that it is his duty to do so, but it does irk me somewhat about it, Nick. I'm not sure how you feel about that. You've obviously probably seen the commercial plenty of times. We see it every goddamn AFL game there is.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting discussion to have, and probably one we could have for this entire podcast. But like you said, we want to keep some American international listeners on board. But I do think that it would be of a benefit to him. But Ben Simmons doesn't give a shit at the end of the day, so I don't think he's really going to. And like I said, it might be somewhat hot takey for me to put out there. I'm not sure that he ever will, despite the fact that he's only 24 years old. We might get like a swan song from him, but then in a way to be like, you know what? We wanted you when we had a chance to, in 2019 when we were that close to getting a medal, and in 2016 when you were, on the rise, in your rookie year and such. So, look, I don't know, Nick. Hopefully Josh Giddey plays. Maybe we see Matisse Thybulle and his somewhat Australianness play. Kyrie Irving's never going to be allowed to play again because he's too damn good for Australia. But one man can hope, given that he now plays for the Brooklyn Nets too. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about Ben Simmons and the Boomer debate?
For starters, can you imagine if Kyrie Irving did play for the Australian national team?
Oh my
Kyrie
God,
Irving, Paddy Mills, Joe Ingles, Ben Simmons, Aaron Baines, Matisse Thybulle potentially. Like, what an insane team that would be. Anyway, he definitely should. And for all the reasons I had these things ticked off in my brain, and you have just stolen all of them. So thank you. Because while you were going on about how it would be good for him, I was like, okay, he's taking that angle. I'll take the angle of he thinks he's too good for the team. And then you just like, well, but maybe he thinks he's too good for the team. So that's just
Great
fantastic.
mind.
Thank you, Jackie boy. There is the risk of that he enters this Boomers squad and says, listen, I'm a number one pick. I am better than all of you. You see Aaron Baines struggling on the Toronto Raptors. You see Paddy Mills in the twilight of his career, and Joe Ingles, who looks like a friggin' just doesn't look like an NBA player. Matthew Dellavedova, who's not really like in vogue anymore. Like, this could either have a great effect in that it would ground him, maybe with a different coaching staff, different teammates, different environment, different city on traveling. All of these points could really ground him and be like, listen, I need to, be the best version of me that I can be. And maybe something in the Boomer squad, we utilize him differently. There is maybe something that we can unlock in him in the way that we will play. The 3-point arc's not as far away. That's also a good point.
We've got a lot of good 3-point shooting. Aaron Baines is shooting threes. Paddy Mills, Joe Ingles, Matthew Dellavedova. You play a five-man lineup of Baines, Simmons, Dellavedova, Ingles, and Paddy Mills. That is an awesome 5-man lineup.
It's a deep 2 as well. Like, they can make it. They can make this. Even Benny can make it. I have faith. But there's this whole. I think a fresh scene will be very, very good for him. That's why I tend to believe that it could do more good than bad. But his personality does lead us to believe that maybe he could think he's above the Australian national team, which is I can happily say this on the podcast. He is easily the most talented on this team. He is such
the best Australian player we've ever had. May ever have in the history of our country.
And don't you laugh at us, US men's team. Don't you laugh. But
look, he's better than Kevin Love, for God's sake. Kevin Love's on Team USA. Come on.
His mentality is hurting him a lot. I mean, we're just seeing that at the free throw line. Not a good shooter, but he should be shooting. He should be shooting better from at least the free throw line, and that, I believe, is a massive. It's just a mental thing with him. A fresh team, a fresh system, a fresh coach, and a fresh city, country. I guess if you're traveling, could do wonders for him. So this is a 100% fact. Not only should he do it for his own benefit, but for Australia's benefit as well. We're going to be a better team with Ben Simmons on it. So. Aussie. Oi.
Yeah, buddy.
Jackie boy. Draymond. So it's going from one non-shooter to another. There we go. That's another
Your segues are good today, my dude. You're on. You are on. I think you're much like once you've eaten, once you've had dinner and stuff, and you're like,
I've got the energy. I've got that
I
chicken.
we need to record pods either after you've had lunch or breakfast or dinner, because you switched on, my guy.
I've got chicken Kiev energy running through me right now. That garlic butter's just. I'm tingling. Anyway, Draymond Green doesn't need to shoot the basketball. Jackie boy, this has come from Twitter. You've linked to me, so you want to give me some context?
Play the video, mate. That's the context.
That's the context. All right, let's go.
It's a real sign of a leader, I think, is being able to deputize.
That's why there's a lot of unsuccessful people and a lot of fucking dumbasses. And you can tell by the criticism that comes to you or the criticism that comes to you. I've found that solace in that over the last couple years, and just listening to people and what they say and the criticism, it actually shows you how fucking stupid people are through their criticism. For instance, people will say, Draymond, you should shoot. But if I can get Steph Curry the ball for a fucking shot, why would I shoot?
You should never shoot.
You're actually the fucking idiot for thinking I should shoot because I can get him this shot, and if he's half open, it's better than anyone else in the world. If he's half.
It's a real sign of a...
Oh, Jackie boy. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, but
it does make sense.
It makes sense, but
it's not that simple.
No, the naivety to twist the issue itself to just make it all about just get the ball to Steph. Well, you shooting the ball, even a goddamn layup, opens up the lane and opens up the spacing for Steph Curry in a way
nuanced. And he knows that. He's not an idiot. He's such a smart basketballer. He cannot possibly believe that. But, when it's said in this sort of context, it's easy to believe. But, that's like saying, if I have 4 Draymond Greens on the court and a Steph Curry, we're all right. If we have one shooter on the court, we're okay. No. There's a reason why you have a LeBron James with 4 shooters.
Yeah.
Because that works.
It's like that dumb Reddit post, which is also incredibly amazing, where they talk about, Why don't the Golden State Warriors just get 4 guys, put a ring around Steph Curry, and just let him shoot? Like it's and look, it's dumb. It's horrifically stupid, but also Reddit is the best. But Draymond, like you said, Nick, incredibly smart man. The responses to this were just completely just like, look, criticism can be like we criticize many a people on this pod, and some of it is warranted, some of it might not be, some of it we might go over the top, and obviously who gives a shit about what we say. But criticism might be valid if it's coming up quite consistently from people who aren't just bots on certain social media platforms. And it might be, an assistant coach within your franchise. It might be a reporter who knows what's going on day after day after day and covers your franchise. It might be a person who is, this analyst of the game who isn't necessarily a person who's just about takes and opinions and stuff, but they understand what is impacting basketball, what would impact the Golden State Warriors, Stephen Curry, and your team to the best extent. The best version of Draymond Green is the Draymond Green that shot. When he shot 35% from the field, that was the best version of the best team we've ever seen. And now Draymond is just like a complete non-shooter that it makes Ben Simmons look like freaking Joe Harris. Now, I understand what he's saying and the way that he's twisted the argument and the conversation itself to fit his own sensibility and his own narrative is quite clever and also a little bit manipulative at the same time. But that's why he's also really good friends with LeBron James. But to just say that, like, just not shooting the ball and just get the ball to Steph all the time makes the most sense. Well, if you are just going to continue to get the ball to Stephen Curry, isn't that just going to be so much easier to just scout for? And it's what made Stephen Curry's season this year so much more insane, because Draymond was a non-shooter. Kelly Oubre was shooting so horribly, and like James Wiseman was had a very poor rookie season. So I think that it's a little bit naive of Draymond Green to say this, but I do understand also where he's coming from to, I guess, protect his own personal narrative in terms of how he plays. Because look, we don't need you to shoot 4-5 threes a game, Draymond. Or like the team just needs you to drive in and take a couple of layups. Get a bit of a mini floater, because the drive and kick game opens up everything for shooters. Drive and kick, pick and roll. It's I don't know, Nick. I think that Draymond has been a little bit irrational here.
Yeah, I mean it is. I guess he's doing. Imagine if he had said that to Steve Kerr. Like, this isn't a conversation that he's having with, I hope so. I freaking hope not. This is not a basketball conversation. This is just an interview, with people that aren't going to challenge him on his basketball prowess, who aren't watching.
Yeah. Chid Cuddy and Chelsea Handler aren't necessarily going to be like, what are you talking about?
This isn't a hard interview for him. But I guess philosophically, this is how he believes. But you're right. Like, before Kevin Durant came in there, Draymond was not shy of hitting that 3-pointer with the backpack on, and it looked like he had a backpack on.
Couldn't give a shit about the style, Nick.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, so long as
amazing.
Exactly, so long as it went in, and that was part of what made the Warriors so scary, was that they had 3 Hall of Famers on their team who could all hit threes. And when the Splash Brothers, obviously with the outliers, but Draymond Green facilitating that, plus hitting it when he needed to, 2 threes a game. It's all he would need, and it was enough. Like
even layups, Nick.
Yeah, but yeah, like creating space.
Yep.
It just makes his job easier, doesn't it? Like, as a facilitator, if he can drive and create space, it makes the passes easier. It makes the lanes more open, and it just, I don't know, makes his job easier as a facilitator. I don't play in the NBA, but that's just what I've seen.
I mean, like, what does it do for you? Like, look, Giannis, we criticize him for taking too many threes sometimes, and a lot of people do, but he at least takes them, whether it's for his own sanity or for his own benefits. But look, if you see your defender like sitting back at the goddamn like free under the rim, that's got to be like some sort of slight to your character to be like, you are this bad of a shooter. I'm going to sit this much off you, Dre. I don't care. Or I'm just going to hound around and double team and blitz Steph. So if he does shoot it, you're going to have to nail a pretty awesome pass, which you can do, or nail a pretty awesome screen, which you also can do. But it just makes life so much tougher for that team. And look, it might be a conversation where, like, yes, Klay Thompson on the team, like you mentioned, Nick, next season, and he's somewhere near his best. We certainly hope that, Dre could probably make us eat our own words. But I think that he probably, if Steve Kerr's having some conversations behind the scenes, I mean, they've clashed many a times for numerous reasons. But we'll see what next year's version of the Golden State Warriors is, Nick, because I'm pretty excited about that team.
Yeah, I don't know where Golden State finished in terms of the lottery, but obviously it was still...
They got 7-14.
There you go. They were still in the lottery. So you've got James Wiseman coupled with, 2 more first-round picks. With Klay coming back, could be quite a formidable team. We're already saying this year that, this team was going to be, like, don't sleep on the Warriors. And then, obviously, Klay got injured. And I think that still reigns true. That still definitely reigns true for next season because they've got the draft picks as well. And Steph is coming off one of his best ever seasons.
Incredible.
So he's still got it. Like, he's not slowing down. Just whether Klay can come back fighting fit. And Draymond can obviously still facilitate until he's 50 years old, I have no doubt. Like, the guy, that sort of stuff just doesn't leave you. Yeah. Jack. Another pod, or are we talking this live? No, that's all right. We'll leave it
next week.
So thank you all. You see, Jackie does so much work that he's got extra topics here. But we've only got so much time in this hour podcast. We're coming up to the 56-minute mark now. We love you guys, but we got to save some stuff for next week. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in and making it this far, making it through the Boomers Talk. Well done to you. Thank you for tuning in to Just Ball Things. As always, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Player FM, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. We will be there. I recently made the switch to Spotify podcasts, and it's good stuff. So wherever it is you listen to your podcast, we will be there. Do us a solid if you're listening to us on Apple. Leave us a rating and review, 5 stars, please. It helps us out a bunch in terms of rankings. If you're catching us on the YouTubes, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, notification bell, comment, all those good things. Yes. Subscribe as well for so you know when fresh content comes out by OTG. Remember, it's you guys who make this show great, so we appreciate any and every post heading our way. So until next week,
keep balling, superstars.